Good day to you all. All right, so it's been a few months since I've last done a deep dive. I apologize. I've had a lot of people ask for me to do another one. I'm really sorry. To sum it up, So I thought I'd do a video essay now so that I don't get lazy and not do it.
Hello! It is actually a month after I recorded this video that I'm now finally editing it. So this is like after The Idol was mostly released on HBO. So it is out now. I basically just waited too long to edit this video, but I'm still gonna do it anyway. Yeah.
This is a topic that I wanted to talk about and then I forgot about it and didn't have time. And then it's recently come up in a lot of headlines and not in a good way. Basically, Sam Levinson is a slime ball, and that is putting it extremely fucking lightly. First of all, he destroyed the entire potential of Euphoria, what it could have been, what it should have been. He added a lot of useless and disgusting elements into the movie X, which also could have been much more interesting. And he recently tore apart the potentially beautiful series The Idol to fit into his sick, perverted fantasies. I wrote literally how many pages of notes? 9 pages of notes, and I'm gonna be reading off of it because I don't want to forget anything. I don't want to forget anything in this video, but I need to breathe. Okay, so I'm gonna start with The Idol just because that is on the forefront of every article lately. That is what everybody's talking about, and I feel like I need to talk about it as well because this one specifically really just made me angry, and I have to talk about it. I cannot not talk about this show. It's The Idol, okay? Do I have to go any further? So when I first saw the trailer for The Idol, I think it was last July, I was originally concerned because, first of all, the entire trailer didn't reveal anything about a plot. Like, when I watched the trailer, I was like, what is the plot of the show? I still don't even fucking know what the plot of the show is. They literally have given us no fucking details as to what the actual plot of the show is.
Keep in mind, I filmed this before the show was released, so now, although we might have an understanding of what the plot is, back then, right before the show was released, there literally was not much detail. And I will also say, either there is no real plot, no real substance to the show whatsoever, or the plot itself is just very incohesive because no one who's watched the show has been able to tell me what it's about. It's about a star in Hollywood and a guy who's abusing her. But that's not necessarily a plot, okay? What is the plot? Somebody please tell me if you've seen it and you know. I personally have no clue. I'm confused and lost, and I don't care to watch the show, so.
In the first teaser trailer, there was no plot at all. There was no sense of a plot. There was no hint to what the plot could be, what the show was supposed to be about. It was mostly just scenes of Lily Rose Depp being overly sexualized and taking off her clothing, and The Weeknd kind of said, hey, here and there in a few scenes and showed his face. But that was about it. I didn't see any reason to watch the show. At first, I was not upset by the show. I was just confused. And then, they showed that little flash screen of it saying, Sick and Twisted Mind of Sam Levinson. I was like, oh, okay. It makes sense. So I wasn't exactly, there was no anger, there was just concern and confusion. First of all, what was the plot? Second of all, why was the entire trailer just them sexualizing Lily Rose Depp? Oh, because it's Sam Levinson. And then also he dubbed it the sleazy story in all of Hollywood. So that was another red flag that went up in my mind. Sam Levinson, sleazy story in Hollywood. Those are not two things that you want to see combined in a TV show. Again, I was not mad by the trailer. I didn't really care to watch it because there was no plot. There was no fucking plot. I want to emphasize to you that the plot of this show is entirely, even today, after all the information I've gathered, I don't fucking understand the plot of the show. I need to calm down. Because there was no plot clear in the trailer, I didn't really care to watch it. There was nothing. It didn't drive any excitement in me. It didn't drive any interest. There was nothing about it that I thought was interesting, but I saw that it was getting a lot of hype because it had The Weeknd and it had Lily Rose Depp, and so people were hyping it up like crazy. Just me personally, I was just okay, what's it about though? Does anybody fucking know? And I just kind of forgot about the trailer for a while, and I knew it would probably be a shitstorm that would come up in a later conversation, and I was right because Cheyenne Rowntree of Rolling Stones, in a few months after the teaser trailer was released an article called How HBO's Next Euphoria Became Twisted Torture. The article goes into depth about the series' plot, finally what happens in the show, how it came to be, and how the show has developed, or actually devolved, in the hands of Sam Levinson. So before we get into the atrocities that this series beholds, it's important to see what the series was originally meant to be versus what it is now. To premise, the release of The Idol has been long put off and overdue. They originally wanted to release it during November of 2021. They originally went into production of July 2021 after Abel The Weeknd came up with the idea, and they were going to release it in November of 2021. However, for reasons unknown to us up until now, the show's release date was withheld from the public, and it was put off and put off and put off. And as people kept asking the question, when is this show going to come out, they just kept releasing teaser trailer after teaser trailer after teaser trailer, just to remind people the show is coming, but we're not going to tell you when. And the teaser trailers that they released again during this time revealed nothing but the fucking plot.
Oh my god.
So there was the first original teaser trailer that I saw last year. And then all the teaser trailers that followed it, which I still, like, what? Anyways, after the release of the Rolling Stones article, all of the bric-a-brac,
Oh, hell no.
makes sense. The Idol was originally being directed by Amy Seimetz, I'm sorry if I pronounced this incorrectly, who left the project after 80% of the series had been finished. And it was at this point that HBO announced the show would be getting a makeover, or a creative turnover, whatever you want to call it. And it would be readjusting the cast and crew, the crew which includes Amy, the director of the show. And there was little explanation as to why the show needed such a drastic makeover, except for Tesfaye, better known as The Weeknd, who felt the show was leaning too much into female perspective. So
my laptop literally sounds like a helicopter. Sorry, it's been about 2 months after I filmed this video. Don't shoot, don't shoot. I just wanted to say that this comment, this whole thing, reminds me a lot of the Barbie movie. Ken takes over Barbie Land because he doesn't like the women being in charge and he wants to have more of a voice. Barbie just came out. Can you tell I'm so happy about it? Anyways, this is literally the plot to Barbie, and no one is talking about it. So I'm just gonna say it as it is. Yeah. Wait, I have one more thing to say. So The Weeknd changed this entire show because he wanted more screen time. I want to show you some clips of what he thought should take place, of that female perspective that he thought had no place in the show anymore. The stuff he included in order to have more screen time. I want to show you some of it. I'm gonna do a sample.
What this creep just fucking did, right? Oh. Get the fuck out of here.
Sorry, but I only take orders from my boss.
Who? Her, right there?
I'm really sorry, I don't know if this is the right fit anymore. It's been a real pleasure working with you. I wish you, like, all the best.
That translates to get the fuck out of here.
This is the one that really gets me.
Leia. Are you fucking retarded? What did I just say? I'm running the show now. Got anything in the store as beautiful as she is?
I think we can find something.
Great. Let me catch you looking at her again. Let me catch you looking at her again.
I'm not.
Let me catch you looking at her again.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure.
Fucking catch you looking at her again. I'll fucking drag you down Rodeo while your fucking ass just fucking stomp you. I'll fucking curb stomp you.
I'm sorry.
I'll fucking curb stomp you.
I'm sorry. I'm not sure what you were interpreting, but
let me see it.
All I'm saying is, had we leaned into that female perspective just a little bit more, the audience could have been spared those cringe-ass scenes, because I did not subject myself to watching this show willingly, consentingly. I saw those clips from TikTok, and they made me laugh so hard I had to include them, just to prove my point.
To emphasize just how big of a transformation we're talking, the Rolling Stones said this, and I'm just gonna read a lot of this information straight from the article because I think it just sums it up perfectly. In interviews with 13 members of the show's cast and crew, Rolling Stone has learned the drastic delay was caused by Levinson taking over as director and scrapping the nearly finished $54 to $75 million project to rewrite and reshoot the entire thing. Rewrite and reshoot a series that had already almost been finished that took $54 to $75 million. Who Who greenlit that? Who greenlit that? The article goes on basically to say that the show became a caricature of what it once was. It scrapped the original message it meant to portray, which was the story of a woman in Hollywood overcoming exploitation, and instead the show dialed up the disturbing sexual content and nudity to match, and even surpass that of Levinson's most successful show, Euphoria. And that's a really fucking hard feat. We're gonna talk about Euphoria later, but matching and topping the sexual content of Euphoria is gonna take a lot of sexual content. One production member stated, "What I signed up for was a dark satire of fame and the fame model in the 21st century, the things that we subject our talents and stars to, and the forces that put people in the spotlight, and how that can be manipulated in the post-Trump world." Went from satire to the thing it was satirizing. Ultimately, according to more sources from the set, Levinson scrapped Simone's original approach to the story because it leaned too much into the female perspective and made it less about a troubled starlet falling victim to a predatory industry figure and fighting to reclaim her own agency. And it became more of a degrading love story with a hollow message that some crew members describe as offensive. No shit. One source even titled the series a fantasy, which is probably the most accurate description I've heard when I watched the trailer again after reading this article. One source stated it was a show about a woman who was finding herself sexually, turned into a show about a man who gets to abuse a woman and she loves it. To delve into what the show actually entails, I'd like to propose that one proposed scenario was for Lily Rose Depp to carry an egg in her, and if she dropped or cracked the egg, The Weeknd's character would refuse to her, which sent Lily Rose Depp's character into a spiral, begging him to her because she believed this was the key to her success. To premise, this scene was not filmed, but it was proposed. And the only reason they didn't film this scene was not because they took a step back to realize how fucked up that was, but because there was no realistic way for them to put an egg in Lily Rose Depp without it cracking. The only reason they didn't film it was because it just was not possible to film. In another draft episode, there was a scene where The Weeknd's character bashes in Lily Rose Depp's face, to which her character smiles.
I won! Oh, you're being a bit...
and asks to be beaten more, to which The Weeknd's character gets an right. To be fair, Simone's version of The Idol was also going to contain sex scenes and nudity, but to be fair to her, I believe that these scenes were going to be included to help with the development of the plot and the furtherment of the show's theme, rather than just purely for the enjoyment of the show's audience. But of course, Levinson is Levinson, and according to sources, he dramatically ramped up the explicit content. One source from the set stated that it's almost such an extreme that it's like there's no message, there's no point. They're, Sam Levinson, just trying to see how much of a reaction they, Sam Levinson, can get. To add fuel to the fire, and this is the point of the video where I am going to make people mad because I am going to tear into The Weeknd as well.
Wait before you attack me. I'm not trying to say that we should cancel The Weeknd, and I'm not saying you can't listen to The Weeknd. I like his music as well. I would be lying if I said I didn't. I think he's a talented lyricist, a talented musician, talented singer. So I'm not going to deny that he doesn't deserve the success he has. I'm just saying that we should hold him accountable for being a part of such a disgusting project, and we shouldn't overlook it so quickly, and especially his reaction to the negative reviews that came along with this project. But I'm not trying to cancel The Weeknd. I still think he's talented, so I just wanted to clarify before anyone got too upset. It's not what I'm saying. This video is still about Sam Levinson. I'm just saying that both of them were involved in this specific series in particular, which I think is probably the most disgusting series to come out in a while. So I'm just saying that we should take that into consideration. That's all I'm saying.
Tesfaye posted a teaser clip of the show to his Instagram, which, might I add, again, this teaser clip revealed fucking nothing about the plot. Anyway, he posted a teaser clip of the show after this Rolling Stones article was updated. Dogs. He posted this clip to his Instagram with the caption that said, "At Rolling Stone, did we upset you?" And then he also made a comment later on about how the Rolling Stones was irrelevant. The show, like I said, was originally dreamed up by The Weeknd himself. It went into production June of 2021. Sorry, not July 2021. It was June 2021. According to sources who worked on set when Simon was director, she was set up to fail from the very start. Rolling Stone states that when she arrived on set 7 weeks before the show started filming, she was given half-finished scripts, a tight schedule, a near impossible expectations from HBO. They said Amy was doing her best in an impossible situation, but she was going to lose this no matter what. Steinmetz declined to comment on the matter, and although I have no real clue as to why, I can imagine that it was because she didn't want to suffer any further damage to her career at the hands of Levinson, who by this time has gained a lot of traction and fame in the Hollywood world. So HBO also wanted to keep the show low budget, yet wanted Steinmetz to deliver Euphoria level results, with Euphoria having twice the budget as The Idol. I believe The Idol was, they wanted it to have a budget of 54 million, and Euphoria has a budget of 110 million, at least the second season. So they wanted her to deliver the results that Euphoria got with half of the budget that Euphoria had. It seems as though, although Levinson was largely missing during the first few weeks of filming, he showed up coincidentally the day that Lily was filming her first intimate scene with Tesfaye. He had a different idea of what the show should be from the start than Steinmetz did, even though she was the corrective mind director behind it at this point. One production member recalls that he went into The Idol thinking that this might be an interesting collaboration with Levinson, but they left it pretty convinced that he was not quite collaborative. I'm going to read straight from the Rolling Stones article again here, just because they have a lot of facts and opinions from the actual crew. When the production of The Idol resumed in May 2022, a majority of crew members from the first shoot did not return, according to 5 production sources. The cast was also gutted, blindsiding some of the little-known actors who they thought had landed their big break were now wiped from the show. I believe Jennie from Blackpink was originally supposed to have more of a role in the show, but once Levinson went on, he cut a lot of her lines, and I think she only has like 3 or 4 now or something, and a lot of the actors that were in it are no longer in it, so there's that. The article goes on to talk about how much of a mess the show was just from filming, like aside from the actual plot of the movie. The article goes on to talk about how much of a mess the filming of this show was, talking about how the budget was all over the place and several scenes were written the day of and things were constantly being changed and cut out and added in at the last minute. Several crew members stated that they would never work for Levinson again, and the overall feeling they all seem to have as a result of this project is just exhaustion. But what I think is really funny about the show is The Weeknd. He dreamed up a story centered around a woman in Hollywood with the woman as the main character, and then they signed a woman to be the director because her female perspective could probably be very useful in a show where the character is a female. And then he was unhappy when the female director leaned too much into her own female perspective about a female character. Why would you come up with a show where the main character is a woman, the show about a woman's journey, directed by a woman, and then be mad when the show leans into the female perspective? Not only was the show just having a main character be a female, but the show was literally supposed to be about a female's journey through objectification and sexualization, trying to make it big in Hollywood. That was what I gather it was supposed to be. This is the kind of thing that women in Hollywood and just day-to-day jobs have to deal with on a daily basis, is this kind of objectification and sexualization. And it would have been very interesting to see this being played out on screen, the female perspective of this, because we don't see many shows that do that, who talk about what it takes to be a woman in this sort of industry, what that experience is. It would have been really beautiful to see, but of course, The Weeknd was mad that he didn't have more screen time.
Fucking curb stomp you.
All right, so y'all just seen that corny ass shit.
Seriously, why did you come up with that idea if you didn't like it? So there's been a change in my eyelashes, my wardrobe, and the lighting. It's nighttime. I took off my eyelashes and I got cold, but I know that if I don't film the rest of this now, I will forget, and I don't want to forget. When I saw what this show was about, when I read the Rolling Stones article, I was disappointed, but I wasn't surprised, seeing that Sam Levinson has done stuff like this in the past. I mean, he hasn't like taken over projects necessarily, but he has put a lot of emphasis on nudity and sex scenes in everything he's been involved in, which is just a very weird pattern to have. If you see Sam Levinson is involved in something, you know that there's going to be a surplus of sex scenes, so you can't watch it with the rest of your family. That's like a weird reputation to build up as a director, but I mean, it's Hollywood. I guess it's just normal to them. So we're talking here about Sam Levinson, but another thing, honestly, like what this is about for me is I'm just really tired of seeing women being sexualized constantly in movies and TV shows. It's been a very, very, very long time since I have watched a TV show that does not have at least one sex scene in there, like graphic sex scene. A lot of the time, these sex scenes are just so fucking unnecessary. In Euphoria, you probably could have had 1 or 2 in there in Cassie's plot line to further her plot line, and then that could have been it, and I feel like it would have been just so much better. I mean, that's just me personally. I just am tired of saying it because a lot of the time, first of all, these sex scenes are unnecessary. Second of all, a lot of the time also, it's just because they want to sexualize the female characters. I notice a lot of the time it's the women who the camera focuses on during the scenes. There's a real emphasis on including specifically female nudity and sexual content in shows. A lot of scenes in Euphoria actually were just the women performing sexual acts without a partner, which is very interesting to me. It's just tiring being a woman. I mean, we deal with sexualization, not just on the big screen. Like, the average woman deals with sexualization every single day. That's a whole other topic that I can't necessarily get into in this video, but I'm just saying I'm really tired of seeing female sexualization on the screen when it's absolutely unnecessary to the plot in movies. Tying back to The Idol, it would have actually really been nice to have a show that touched on that subject. It showed what it's like to be a woman in Hollywood trying to make it big when everyone around you is sexualizing you and objectifying you and trying to tear you down because of your gender. It would have been really nice to have a show like that, which is, I think, the direction that Simons was trying to take the show. Show people what it's like to be a woman in Hollywood. But now we are being handed a sexual torture. You know, Sam Levinson's sick and twisted mind wanted to take part in said plot. So we all know Euphoria. This is not the first time that Levinson has shoved sexual fantasies down our throats through his cinema. You have Euphoria, for example, and before you go throwing pitchforks at me, because I know that this show has a really strong fan base, I'd like to say that Euphoria, I will recognize, started out as something with a lot of heart and a lot of promise, and it quickly turned into a sour rendition of itself with a lack of care for its own characters and what each character stood for. When the first season of Euphoria came out, everyone was swearing up and down to me that it was the greatest show they'd ever seen, that it was truly beautiful, that I just had to watch it. And the show did seem quite appealing because, first of all, I like A24. They were the studio who helped make Euphoria, and I like Zendaya. The cinematography seemed really promising and the music, so it seemed appealing, I'll be honest. But I wasn't ever really compelled to watch it because I'd seen a lot of critics call it like a soft with teenagers, and that just kind of drew me away from it. It took about a year after the show's release for me to actually come around to watching it because my friend really wanted me to. And my friend told me that the sex scenes weren't really that bad, and she said that there was probably like 1 every 2 episodes. So I was like, okay, like maybe that person who wrote that article, that critic, was just exaggerating. They were not exaggerating. I believe there was at least 1 sex scene in every episode, and don't quote me on that because I actually looked it up to see how many sex scenes there were in the first season alone, and I couldn't find an exact number, nor do I want to go back and watch the show again and then count every single one because I just don't care enough to. But I did look it up, and apparently in the first season, there were 30 penis shots in total. So I think that tells us about all we needed to know, and that's just with the men. But I digress. When I first watched the show, I actually sought to find beauty beyond the sexualization and all the sex scenes. I recognized that the characters were well developed in the sense that each were flawed in a realistic manner and that each dealt with real relatable life struggles. For example, Cassie, who had received a lot of mistreatment from her father at a very young age, developed a poor self-image of herself and started to rely on male validation and became overtly objectified as a result. Prue was dealing with a drug addiction following the death of her father. Jules was in the midst of her sex transition and was discovering who she was, as well as what her sexuality was, what her identity was. And the other characters each had their own individual issues, but I forget what they were. Those are just the ones that stick out to me the most. And the show was, at its core, mostly relatable for a younger audience. There was discussion of daddy issues, body issues, understanding one's identity, addiction, and they're all real issues, and to an extent, they were portrayed moderately well through each of the characters. And that was how I felt until the characters were depicted having sex like every 2 seconds. The carousel scene with Cassie, what was the purpose of that beyond just shock value? I mean, we all talk about it. We all seen the scene. We've all talked about it. But generally, what was the purpose of that scene? And then we have Kat's 17-year-old, I believe she plays a 17-year-old character, going into sex work, which they try to portray as empowering. Natty and Nate being shown having sex almost every episode and having an abusive relationship, which is somewhat romanticized to an extent, not exactly, but almost romanticized. It's a slippery slope. And then they also show Jules having sex a lot. It's just, I mean, I'd like to remind everyone that the characters in this show, their ages range from 16 to 18. And even though the actors who play them are in their early 20s, which is still really young, by the way, depicting teenage characters having sex in TV actively sexualizes today's youth. And I feel like we don't emphasize that enough. We kind of just give Euphoria a pass because the actors are much older, but I don't really care. They shouldn't be sexualizing teen characters on show because it does have an impact in real life. I'd also like to add that a lot of the story was highly unrealistic. I've said this before and I've gotten shut down because people say that it's supposed to be over dramatized. And I mean, I guess I get it. Like, the show has a lot of layers. One could argue that the over dramatization of the characters combined with the almost euphoric style cinematography is meant to romanticize the show in a way that many teens might romanticize their transition into adulthood. I get that. Like, that makes sense to me. But seriously, at a certain extent, what is too much? Because what 17-year-olds do you know that go out and do Molly like every time they go out? That just doesn't really happen. Maybe you know people who were doing that, but I personally didn't. The most I heard kids doing in high school was maybe smoking weed, and that was even a lot for us. Let's talk about the outfits that the kids were wearing to school in the show. Like, they were wearing like borderline lingerie, bondage to class, like just really out there stuff. And I think the most out there thing I saw someone wear in high school was like a crop top or like maybe like a shorter skirt. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, a lot of it is over dramatized, and I get, like, if your argument is that it's on purpose to romanticize the story, I guess I get it. But at the same time, it's just a little bit much. And when you add in the factor of there's sex scene after sex scene after sex scene after sex scene, it's just like everything is dramatized and out of proportion way, way, way too much. Like, they need to like tone it down for it to be more realistic, because it had the potential to be truly realistic and relatable to a younger audience, and it just doesn't have it because it's just so like over the top. I remember someone posted about how Euphoria was incredibly unrealistic, and then someone in the comment section of that video said,
well, I'm from LA and it's actually pretty realistic.
Not all of us live in LA. But then we have season 2 of Euphoria. Like, every little thing that I enjoyed about the first season, and just squashed it and like threw it down the drain. I really enjoyed Cassie's character in the first season. I felt like her character had a lot to offer, and it was very relatable for a lot of people. And so her character was kind of interesting to me. She was realistic. I felt for her, and I feel like they could have taken her character and maybe made her, in the second season, maybe they could make her find out who she is and then start figuring out how to love herself without male validation. And then, I don't know, I feel like they could have just made her character a lot better, but instead they took the other route, which they made her crazy Cassie.
I am crazier!
They did this clearly not because they wanted to further the plot, but because they wanted drama. Like, the show to me was like even more over the top than the first season. The most of the show revolved around Cassie and her boy craziness, you know, chasing after her best friend Maddie's boyfriend, and then, you know, snowballing, and then embarrassing herself over and over again, and then Maddie getting mad, and then it was all leading up to them having a fight, which was just like, what? All that just because you wanted to include a fight scene between two of the characters? Are you kidding? And of course, by making her boy crazy, they were able to include a surplus of sex scenes with mostly just Cassie. Her character went from being sweet and caring and understandable to a clown in the second season. And then, not to mention Kat's character in the second season, you could see how little they actually cared about the characters in the show beyond just sexualizing them, because Kat's character barely had any sort of role in the second season, and they kind of took her and made her mean. And then I heard that she's not going to be in a third season. I don't know if that's confirmed or not. I'm pretty sure it is, but I heard that she's leaving the show. The show went from being very, very realistic in the first season with a lot too much sex and very over dramatized, but at its core it was pretty realistic. And then they went into the second season and just threw it all the way. There's a lot more I could say that I didn't like about this show, but I really just wanted to focus on the sexualization of female figures in the show in particular, trailer. Sydney Sweeney, actually the actress who plays Cassie, has actually stated that she requested for Levinson to cut out some of the sex scenes and sexualized scenes from Euphoria a few times because she was just so uncomfortable. Part of it is because I think Cassie's character has been noted to be one of the most sexualized characters in the show, especially following the second season. But it's just, it says something when the actress herself who plays the character says that there's a line, when there's so much in there that she just has to say there's a line. It just shows that a lot of it is just extremely unnecessary. In short, Euphoria is a perfect display of how Levinson takes potentially brilliant pieces of cinema and twists them to be overtly sexual and over the top in order to get a reaction out of his audience. His pretentious can do nothing wrong attitude has been one of the main sources of downfall for him, except unfortunately he still makes a lot of money. And then there's the movie X, and I didn't have the energy to write notes for this movie. I'm just gonna say I hated that movie. I thought it was gonna be interesting. I knew what it was when I walked in. I knew it was gonna be about, you know, the making of an adult film followed by some, you know, horror stunts or whatever, except I thought there would be a lot more of a plot to it. I thought there would be a lot more of a build up to the end of the movie. I thought there would be a lot more heart and soul and plot and depth and complexity, and there wasn't. There was no underlying level to the story at all. A lot of people actually really liked this movie, but this movie really didn't have like an underlying theme. The theme was very much on the surface. It was very easy to understand. There was no sort of complexity there, no thinking required. And what the movie was, if you've not seen it, was a group of people. They rented out an old guest house on a farm to film a and then the old people who were renting out the house got mad because they were too old to do that sort of thing, and they got really jealous. So these old people who were barely able to walk somehow managed to kill all the characters in the movie except for one. So it was literally just the group pulls up, there's a ton of sex scenes, old people get jealous and they kill everybody, one girl gets away. That's it. And it's just like, the sex scenes were unnecessary. Like, I get that that was the plot in the movie, is that it was about the adult movie filming, but I feel like a lot of it was just extremely unnecessary.
Okay, before anybody comes at me and says, you know what you were walking into, it's a movie about an adult film, of course there's gonna be sexual scenes in there. Okay, I knew that, except they were really, really intense. Some of them were pretty intense, especially that one. And if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. The one of the old people, there was a scene in the movie, which is about like 1 or 2 minutes. It was pretty long and intense, of the old people going at it. And we have an aerial view of these old people going at it. And it was really intense, and it was so comical because it was so ridiculous that people in the theater started laughing, because I saw this in theaters. It was comical. This movie was actually comical because it was trying so hard to be profound, and it just was not. It was embarrassing. Do you know what I mean?
It just didn't make sense. The writing was very poor, I feel. There just wasn't a lot of character development. There was not a lot of build up. There was not much of anything. There was not much substance there. I was literally laughing in the theater, and the people next to me were laughing.
So I've told a few people about this after I went to see the movie, and a lot of people told me that it was a satire and it was supposed to be ridiculous or something. And here's the thing, I've seen plenty of horror satire movies. My favorite like horror movie satire is Cabin in the Woods, and that's an example of a movie that is satirical but also kind of have some commentary to offer and was clearly satire. Like every line in there was clearly meant to be satirical from the start and to make you laugh. It wasn't supposed to be scary. It had the satirical tone to it from the very beginning, but when I went into X, it had a very serious tone from the very beginning. And there weren't very many lines in there that were meant for you to laugh at. Some of them I laughed at, but you could tell they were meant to be serious. And there were some scenes that were so over the top and ridiculous that it was like, I was laughing, but it didn't feel like that was a point where they wanted you to laugh. That was supposed to be a satire. Then they should have taken a different approach, because it did not feel like one. And everyone, I tell you, everyone in the theater, except for the row in front of me, who I think were film snobs, was laughing. 2 people next to me got up and left in the middle of the movie, and when they walked out, they said, this is the worst movie I've ever seen. We were all just like, not laughing with the movie, but at the movie, which is very different. And especially at points where it felt like the movie was supposed to be serious, and everybody left the theater kind of like, well, that wasn't really satisfying. Like, before I finish recording this little bit, the reason I pointed out X is because I wanted to say that Sam Levinson got involved in this project to make it more sexual than it had to be, in my personal opinion. There's a prequel movie to X that I will talk about in a little bit called Pearl. And Sam Levinson was not involved in the writing of Pearl. It was Mia Goth who helped write it. And that movie had very, like, little to none sexual scenes. And the plot was so much more, I don't want to say profound, but it was so much more interesting. And there was a lot of themes that were more complex than we had seen in X. It just seemed like they put a lot more heart and soul and care into the movie Pearl than they did with X when Sam Levinson was involved. So I'm saying that that was obviously because Sam Levinson was involved in the Project X. Although I will give credit where it's due, the acting was pretty good in X. Jenna Ortega gave a really great performance, and so did Mia Goth, of course.
Follow X with the sequel Pearl. Now, Pearl is the sequel to X, and it gained a lot of traction last year when it was first released. And I remember I thought I wouldn't like it that much because I had seen X and I hated X. And I walked into the theater thinking that Sam Levinson was a part of it and that it would be the same thing. And then I saw that Sam Levinson was not involved in the movie. And I watched it and I was actually really impressed. I think there was like one scene in there that was like sexual, but it made sense for the development of Pearl's character because it was odd, it was weird, it showed how manic and crazy she was, and it made a lot of sense. The scene that they chose to include made sense for the plot and the furtherment of her character. It was not just for fun and entertainment. It was not just because they wanted to show nudity. It was a lot more complex. The writing was better. The character development was better. The build-up was better. I was really shocked. I honestly was shocked because going from X, which had none of that, to Pearl, which had all of it, was shocking. Like, I really believe that part of it is because Sam Levinson was not involved. I know that if he was involved in Pearl, it would basically be like X multiplied and just way over dramatized again. But it was much better. And you have to wonder, like, would life and cinema be better without Sam Levinson? The answer is yes. That's basically all I have for today. I'd like to say that if you have your own opinion of these shows or these people, that's totally fine. I just personally have my own vendetta against them because I don't like Sam Levinson. I just feel like we need to start holding these people accountable when they produce these pieces of work that are just overly sexual. It's really harmful and it does have a real life effect. But anyways, I'm really tired. I hope I offered some valid opinions and thoughts to the conversation here. If you'd like to watch, you know, my little video of my France adventures, I did upload that to my YouTube. Just in case you want a little slice of life, I upload publicly all of my travels, so you can watch that if you want. And I will see you sometime after I return from Paris for another video essay. So, bye.